Alright, this is probably my 30th time recording this shit. I got my notes out, and I'm gonna teach you how to beat Fang tonight. Forgive me if there's any errors, because I'm gonna do this very freeform and kinda just wing it all the way through. But I'm sure Fang needs no introduction at all, because he's become very popular as of late in the recent meta. He's very easy to be consistent with because his toolset is pretty small. All of his inputs are really easy, and he has few tools that exploit newer players' weaknesses really well. But he's actually not as good as people tend to think. They just don't know how to approach him, and once you lab him, he becomes a lot easier to deal with because there's not much to deal with in the first place. So for the purposes of this guide video, I'm going to assume that people watching this already know most of the advanced mechanics of Brex. I'm not going to be going over any of those. I'm just going to be covering Fang's game plan, the weaknesses of it, and how you can exploit them. And then I'm going to be showing off some specific moves and scenarios that people have trouble with, and how you can handle them as a variety of characters. So a really good way to learn how to defeat any character is to learn their strengths and how you can get around them. So in my opinion, Fang has three main strengths that he's going to be using against you in every single matchup of his. That is, his extremely easy neutral approach. He pretty much barely has to think about this and gets massive reward due to his running options. He has the Cursed Slide, which you're going to see a million times if you fought any Fang player. It's an 8-frame low, extremely plus on hit, gets him a grab attempt, pretty much any follow-up he wants, no matter how much you stagger shake. If you start getting conditioned to block low, he's going to mix in the mid-tackle, which will obviously catch your low block. So what you're going to have to start doing is evading it, but there's a catch to that. As you can see, he'll end up behind you if you evade the slide, which in a lot of cases will end up safe for him. His second strength is his extremely high block stun on the heavy guard. He can make you block for a very long time, and newer players will try to mash out at certain points where it looks like he's slowing down, but you'll still be stuck in block stun and you'll get counter hit. And his reward on counter hit is very high, and I'm going to demonstrate that right now. So I'm going to have Fang here do a really basic pressure swing on me that you're going to see really often, and I'm going to heavy guard it all. And I'm going to try to mash out of it. You can see I'm pressing the punch button, but I can't interact with this thing at all. I'm in block stun pretty much the entire time. His block stun on heavy guard is extremely high, and if you try to mash out at the wrong time, I'm getting pretty lucky here mashing out only at the end. If I block part of the Rekka, and then I try to mash, it can be even worse for me because I get true launch. You can see I'm spinning there. So what a lot of newer players will do is they only know how to heavy guard, because that's how you guard in a lot of other games. You hold back or you just hold the guard button. And they get caught in really, really long block stun against this guy, and they can't do anything to get out of it, which tempts them to start mashing, or just waiting. If they just wait, he can tick throw them really easily because he gets a ton of plus frames on heavy guard. If they don't wait, he gets a massive counter hit loop even in human, so he can start to feel very oppressive. Luckily, this leads into his weaknesses. There's really no reason to heavy guard against him. He absolutely cannot force you to heavy guard. His only guard break out of neutral and human is this, which is extremely reactable and a high. His guard break in Beast is not reactable, arguably, but its range is pretty poor, and he doesn't get follow-ups on it. So if you can condition yourself to stop heavy blocking against him and light block and evade, his pressure instantly gets a lot weaker and a lot more escapable. Luckily, it's quite a running theme with him not to ever heavy guard. His pressure starts to fall apart when you defend properly as you're supposed to in Bloody Roar, because you'll notice a lot of his strings are filled with highs, and you can exploit that against him. Look at all these highs. His mids aren't the greatest, he just gets this in human, and he gets reactable lows. This isn't even a true low until the second hit, so you can absolutely react to that. Now what you're going to do, and I can demonstrate this pretty well on Shenlong using the record feature, is that once you start light blocking him, he really can't stop you from poking your way out of his strings. He can do stuff like that. That's pretty much his only option for it. As for the slide everyone hates, once you learn how to backdash cancel, your movement becomes a lot more difficult for him to just run at. Backdashing properly will dodge the entire mix-up he has running and give him an extremely easy punish. Or give you an extremely easy punish, rather. This is something a lot of people aren't going to learn for a long time, so later in the video I'll cover ways to punish the backdash, or the slide I mean, without having to backdash cancel. Because you can't always do this. This is usually in like Footsie's range, you'll be able to backdash once you see him running at you. But if he's already here in your face and he wants to get you into this mix-up, you have to hold it. But there's a lot of ways that you can come out on top, despite all the advantages he seems to have when he's running at you. And this is going to lead me into punishing specific moves, which is going to be the rest of the video. And for the very first one, I'm going to pick the slide that everyone hates. You know that if you evade it, to dodge the mid-low mix-up, he's going to end up behind you. But this isn't always a win for him. You can actually do a few things against this. If you press a button immediately after evading, you can hit him behind you. If you hold back right after evading, you can keep him in front of you and then punish him. And a lot of people, newer players don't get this. Don't heavy block this. You don't get a punish on heavy block. But almost every character can launch punish this if they light block it. The reaction time to that is a bit hard, so you might not get it online, and you generally want to evade. But once you find moves on your character that can punish this, he gets away with it a lot less, and he's going to start losing a lot more games. And since this is from an evade, you'll completely dodge the mid that he can do from it. As you can see, all these tactics pretty much work on the tackle the same way. The only thing that won't work is light blocking, and that's generally what you're going to do if you make a read. You want to evade this. If you're scared that he's going to mix up the timing on it, there's always the backdash, which won't work at every range, obviously. And there's this cheesy strat of using a jump evade. This will get you out of the mix-up entirely, but it's probably the least reward. And sometimes it's risky if you know your opponent's going to go for it, but it's a bit niche, so you can get away with this low-key. And that is it for the slide. So as a recap, hold back after you evade to keep in front of you, light block it to get a launch punish on almost every character, and you can use the jumping dodge to get away from the mix-up entirely if you want to make space from him. Just make sure you practice reaction time of punishing that slide, because you shouldn't get away with it nearly as much as you can. And make sure you check your character to see if they have a back-turn attack that can punish him fast enough. And that's going to bring us to the move he's most famous for, his Rekka. I'm going to say this 100 times. Don't heavy guard against this guy. Especially against this Rekka, you're just giving him all the plus frames you can possibly give him, and you have almost no chance of interrupting. He can feint that Rekka at 3 different points, so you're just asking to get put into a horrible mix-up if you heavy block it. However, it's actually a lot easier to punish than you think. There's a massive gap after the first Rekka hit, so if you hit an evade here, you can take your turn back, even with a counter hit stagger. Every character will be able to jab there, so practice doing that. But if you have a counter hit stagger, like Long does, this is about 13 frames, but I think you can do it up to 15. The window will just get tighter. You'll get an even bigger punish on him. The main goal is never let him get past the first one, because after that he's going to start feinting on you, and it's not going to go into your favor. I'm sure there's even worse punishes you can do on him like that. Hold on, the timing on this might be a bit harder. I'll get it. There we go. So find stuff on your character that can punish his Rekka, and if you can't, pretty much every jab in the game will hit there, and you can take your turn back against him. The main thing is you need to be able to evade this. Learning his cancel points will help you a lot, because you'll know where he's going to go for it. It is a bit of a reaction time test to see if you get it, but if you can get this, you're going to oppress him very easily, because this is the crux of his pressure. And that's it for the Rekka. And now I'm just going to cover some of his basic strings that people have trouble with. This is one of the few ways he can make you heavy block, and it's not that good. Its block stun is really high if you do end up blocking it. Like, I can't interact with this at all, so he gets a ton of plus frames and he can do whatever he wants. Mix it up however he wants. The Rekka can be feinted a ton. If it counter hits me, I'm screwed even more. So don't mash against this guy if you get caught heavy guarding. But like I said, pretty much every good option out of neutral he has up close is going to be a high. And you need to exploit the hell out of that against him. Don't let him make you heavy block. The other high block stun string he has that people have trouble with is 5kk into the Rekka. This is pretty much a reactable punch. You can even light block the first one and then do it, but if you get caught heavy guarding, nothing's gonna save you. So again, do not heavy guard against this guy, and his pressure kind of falls apart because other characters can punish you really hard for heavy guarding or only light blocking. He really can't, and he just has to hold it and start playing more fundamentals and not doing his bullshit to you. And that is it for some of his basic strings. The last thing I want to mention is his hyper. People get really annoyed by it because the block stun on everything turns really high, and he basically gets a massive damage combo if he touches you with anything. What I recommend for his hyper is to throw break while heavy guarding. At that point you have to heavy guard anyway, because you're going to get a shit ton of block stun and you can cancel anything and tick throw you. But if you do this and react to his lows, because all his lows are reactable, even in Beast. I didn't even mention his Beast form because it doesn't give him that much more outside of the stats buffs. Basically you sit there, you hold it, you guard everything, and you try to break. He's usually going to go for the forward throw there for the highest reward. If he goes for the normal throw, he's probably going to do the grounded loop on you. With his hyper or any cancel point, he can keep on doing the OTG attack on you over and over. Luckily, you can wake up kick out of that. And that's pretty much all the tricks Fang has. He's pretty simple. If you practice against his Rekka and his slide, you take away his two scariest tools and you force him to play like an average character. And he really can't do that because his moveset is a lot smaller than an average character. And thanks for watching.